Good morning. Happy Monday. What is it? The 14th. So it's April the 14th. We're close to the halfway point of April. Welcome to Coffee Talk. Um, it's been an eventful couple of days for us. Last week I talked to you guys right after the flood, and we'd flooded on Saturday. So we spent all of the week cleaning. Had a garage sale this weekend because we're moving out of I think then we did the math, 13 years in the building we've been in, the two buildings that we've been in, and this is our second flood. Third flood. Last flood was July after road construction. Now this flood, and then good news, we're supposed to flood again this week. So they're predicting another flooding rain cycle. So I'll have water in the building again. So we just decided that it was there was no time like the present, but to move on and go somewhere else. So we had a yard sale this weekend, and I'm going on about and a wedding. I had a wedding to go to Saturday night. So um yeah, I'm kind of going on fumes. I need another weekend to just relax. But I know that you guys feel the same way, right? Like feels like Friday just isn't, the end of Friday to coming back into the shops and stuff on Monday just isn't enough. Or if you're in a claims office, just isn't enough. So we're all in the same boat. We're just trying to get along right now. So we got a lot to talk about. It was we have a lot to say about a few things. So not a lot of different topics, but man, do I have a lot to say. And some things really made me happy, and so I can't wait to share some of those things with you. I'm probably one of those people that I don't get too happy too often. So all right, here's what we're going to cover on episode 30 of Collision Coffee Talk. A body shop executive has been fired. Praise baby Jesus. For those of you that are fans of Talladega Nights and Will Ferrell, you will get that reference. I had the luck of working on a vehicle in that movie. So besides the fact it's funny and I love the damn movie, there's that connection. So a body shop executive has been fired, or we've been told has been fired. And I'm going to talk about that and why that made me happy. We have a write-in request, so we're starting to get. I do read every comment that goes on the videos, even the bad ones. They entertain me. I remember I told you guys that's my hobby, right? Is picking fights on the internet. So had a couple of questions come in on a couple of different videos asking me to address what's going on with the State Farm labor rate drama. So I'm going to cover that this morning. We're going to talk about hiring people for change. There's been some hires around the collision repair industry that, to not sugarcoat it, have pissed me off. And I'm going to talk about just how disappointing the industry had a chance to do some amazing things and take turns and make a stand for just a lot, and they didn't. So I'm going to talk about that. There's also a new issue with State Farm. If the labor rate issue isn't enough to get you your blood pressure boiling a little bit, but wait, there's more. I've got another State Farm problem that we're going to talk about as well. Another question that had come in on one of the videos, I'm sorry, this one was on the podcast, was like, what's on the shelf behind me? And as you can tell, it's changing because the stuff that was in the office at the body shop's coming home. And so like my PPG bobblehead collection is behind me, and some other things. So I'm just going to like talk about some of the things that are on the shelf. I get a lot of questions. What's that behind you, and whose lunchbox is that, and whatever. So maybe it'll just be a new series. What's on the shelf, right? We're going to talk about how to get help with catastrophe claims if you are a body shop. So hail, flood, wind damage, debris, those things tend to send your body shop sort of spiraling. A lot of us were sitting around going, boy, I sure would like a good hailstorm right now, because when business gets slow. But then when we're in the middle of a hailstorm, we're like, boy, we sure could wait for this hail to go away, right? And then we're going to talk about the California Department of Insurance, the insurance commissioner, and his drinking and dining slush fund, and what all's going on with that. So lots to cover there. Insurance companies, stick around. I got a couple of pointed things to make sure that you hear today as well. Of course, that's nothing new. I think every episode I've got things. All right, let's talk about getting fired, right? Um, One of the most frustrating things right now is that the industry as a whole has no idea what good actually looks like and is when it comes to collision repair. For a lot of different reasons, that's all skewed, and it's skewed on both sides of the fence. So not just the insurers, not just the body shops, not just even the vendors that surround us, because I don't know when's the last time I've sat down with a vendor in this industry that knows what a good repair looks like either. But we just don't have a good understanding. And so because of that, a lot of really good shops are victimized or attacked or ostracized or blackballed or whatever you want to call it, because they do things the right way. And that looks nothing like what anybody else in the market is doing. And unfortunately for adjusters, specifically today, you're not in the field. If we go back 30 years ago, and when insurance companies had offices, and they had claims offices, I remember, I think at one point, Arkansas had 7 or 8 State Farm offices spread across the state, right? And we don't have near the population as other places. But you used to have locally staffed claims offices, and those adjusters and estimators, right? We had those, would get out and they would go into the field and they would inspect cars and they would be in and out of different body shops. And over time, you learned who the good ones were and who the bad ones were. And then when DRP started, we put people in charge locally so that hopefully they were selecting the right body shops to be on the program and governing them or overseeing them, et cetera. Well, all of that over the last 10, 15 years has gone to hell in a handbasket, right? We have people in claims. I have met claims managers. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with a claims director. They had reached the title of claims director and had never handled a field claim in their life. Literally, never been into body shops, never been in and out. They're telling customers what they believe are quality repairs versus bad actors in a marketplace. And I'm thinking, you don't get to make that statement because you've never been in and out of a real shop. So unfortunately, to a lot of adjusters and a lot of people on the claim side, volume means good. So if Kristen, if these shops were so bad, then if we were pumping all this volume through here, we would be hearing about more complaints. And in reality, that's just not how that works. There's a lot of complaints out there, but what we were finding is that they're getting swept aside. There's no tracking involved. There's nothing. And on our side of this fence, or whether that makes us bad people because we do post-repair inspections, I don't really care. If you're worried about a post-repair inspection, then that tells me that there's a problem in your shop, right? And you're afraid that somebody's going to show up. Or there's a problem in your network and you're afraid that's going to show up. But on our side, we see day after day, week after week, repeat offenders. And we're not talking accidents. There are mistakes that can be made in a collision repair. Like, every tech's going to have a bad day. Every painter's going to have a bad day or whatever. There's mistakes, and then there's outright damn fraud and consumer, I would say, endangerment that happens. So we have a case where this is the 5th one that I was aware of that coming out of this facility. And this is a facility that the industry likes to brag about. Paint companies like to write stories about them. Magazines like to do stories about them. Everybody likes to talk about how great they are. And in the background, we know there's more there. And this last particular incident of a post-repair inspection, every part listed on the estimate was listed as OEM new. And every part that we inspected had that beautiful yellow Kappa damn sticker on the back of it. So what was sent up, it wasn't a case where, we wrote aftermarket, but we price matched it. It's like, oh, man, technically that's fraud too, but at least that's good fraud, right? But in this case, estimate after estimate, fraud after fraud. And I think what also really infuriated me about this one is the insurance company came to inspect it. We teach a 3-step process for post-repair inspection. So if you go through our adjuster training, we'll talk to you about how to prepare a post-repair inspection. And part of that is preparing your 3 buckets. In other words, I want you to look at the car from a claims perspective and then from a legal perspective if you're going to do a post-repair inspection. So the first thing is, what is damaged on the car from the first accident that was never estimated, never repaired? So what would have been eligible for indemnification or payment under the first claim? what is on the estimate but repaired improperly, in other words, poor workmanship, poor whatever from the body shop, and then what is on the estimate that was not done at all. And so that's just flat out insurance fraud. So you charged for these things, but you didn't do them. And so the insurance company comes to look at this car after the shop did an amazing job of preparing the three buckets. You basically bring the insurer in and go, here are the three buckets. Which ones would you like to talk about? And sometimes the insurers will go, well, only this one's mine that I need to worry about. But if it's a DRP, they're going to look at all three buckets, right? And in this case, they the insurer and the supervisor, so the claims adjuster and the supervisor, are having a conversation with the body shop about how they know how terrible this shop group is, and that it looks like they're going to get away with it again. Like, and it just infuriated me because basically all all of the responsibility of DRP has been taken away from locals, and it resides somewhere in corporate where I don't know if they can spell body shop or locate a spare tire, much less have anything to do with overseeing a direct repair program. And so this supervisor was expressing their frustrations about how they're going to get away with it again. I mean, there was enough on this car that was not properly estimated the first time that would have just, the car should have been totaled. It never should have been fixed in the first place. But I think the shop wanted to have a repairable, right? Because under the DRP, you don't make any money on the total losses. So they half-assed it, right? If you're looking at these pictures, besides the fraud and the parts, there are parts that were labeled to be repaired that aren't even repaired. There are parts, frame, substructure, etc., that were damaged that were never estimated. And then my favorite there is as the shop began to take it apart to try to determine where the damage was, these were all the broken plastic that kept falling out of it. So all of those supportive plastic parts in the front end of these cars these days, all of that from grille reinforcements to headlights to whatever was all busted and shattered, and they had kind of like half-assed this thing back together. And of course, over time and vibration, those plastic pieces had broke away. But just from taking the bumper cover off, this was all of the broken plastic and parts that the shop had to sweep up. And so part of me is thinking is the entire time this customer had this car, was it leaving this trail of like breadcrumb trail of broken parts everywhere that they were driving? But listening to that supervisor say they're going to get away with it again tells me that this isn't the first time for this particular insurer that they had been called to look at a post-repair inspection from this facility, and that they had no control over whether that person stayed on their DRP program or not. And even telling corporate, hey, we got a problem, wasn't getting people off. So if you're sitting in a position of authority and you are at an insurer, I'm going to need you to pay attention to what we're about to cover, because I'm of the point where I am going to continue to advocate and highly encourage more shops to do post-repair inspections just for record-keeping purposes. So, and the insurance myth about liability protection. When DRP first got started, most insurers believed, and there's been a lot of court cases between then and now, that the contract and the way it was set up, that hands-off approach, so to speak, lessened their liability. So we went from having overly involved field direct management of the DRP to removing that completely, because it was believed that hands-on field environment or people going in and out of the shop would increase the liability. In other words, ignorance is a defense for insurance. It is not a defense for body shops, but it can be a defense for insurers. I didn't know. So what do you know? In other words, if this manager is telling me that oh, they're going to get away with it again, well, then obviously you've had multiple situations. Once you're made aware, you can claim ignorant for so long, but once you're made aware that you have a repair facility that is not repairing cars properly, and we're not talking paint doesn't match, or the paint's gritty, or the texture's off, or there's overspray on moldings. We're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about severe safety issues. Like what I just showed you is one of the best repairs this place had ever done. So to have their president terminated or fired or let go, that's great. kudos, thank you. Finally, the repair facility did something, but they got OEM certifications and they're on everybody's damn DRP program, and none of that has been turned off right now. So I'm still pretty upset about that because the technicians that were doing that work are still there, right? And how many more of these cars are out there? And then how do you don't just instantly let go of the leader of the company and suddenly all the people in the field start changing the way that they repair cars. So I appreciate that effort or that gesture, so to speak, but there should be some restrictions. So insurers, once somebody brings you and you're aware, you've done this post-repair inspection, one of your supervisors or your adjusters has come and look at it. If you don't remove that shop from your program or temporarily suspend them with an improvement plan, well, we used to do that, right? Suspend a shop, go in and tell them what they're doing wrong, give them like a performance improvement plan, and then you may turn them back on at a later date. Nobody's doing any of that anymore. So if you don't do that and you're made aware and a car comes in after that, like this Malibu, and then is fixed, you are liable. You knowingly continued to refer customers, telling them that you were going to warranty it, telling them that these were good shops, telling them that you should trust it. Hell, half the time your adjusters tell people that the shop they got their car at is terrible and commits fraud and won't be a good repair unless you go to our DRP. So you got your people selling the story and you know better. The next part of it is what are you doing to track this? For the most part, when I meet with the top insurers, they're not tracking any of this. So they're going in and declaring these vehicles total losses through post-repair inspection. But there's no record keeping. I get why you don't want to keep records, but I'm going to ask you a lot of questions because I'm going to know all the ones you bought back. And then I'm going to ask you lots of questions in front of jury members on why you weren't tracking this and why you didn't care about the safety of other consumers that had to come after it. We can all make mistakes. We can all be unaware of something. That happens 100%. But once you're aware, again, Maya Angelou, right? When you know better, do better. Once you know better. And then what are you requiring your DRP shops to report? I want to know when they have to do a buyback. So most of these DRPs, they buy the car back without involving the insurer. Some of them get stupid, like this letter over here on the right, and say, don't talk to me, talk to the insurance company, because they believe there are still shops under this DRP fog that believe we only did what the insurance company paid us to do, so therefore we're not liable. We have multiple court cases where you can go read the transcripts of these body shop managers saying we did what the insurance company told us to do, right? We're fine. We just can only do what they pay us to do. That doesn't go well, and you don't do well in court. Juries don't like it. Judges don't like it. You know better to even say it out loud. It doesn't even sound right coming out of your mouth when you're doing that. But insurers, what are you making these shops report to you? Are you making them report to you when they do a buyback? Not just on your claims, but anybody's claims. If you have to buy a car back for any reason whatsoever, for any insurer whatsoever, we want to know about it. You must self-report, right? OEs, you have more liability than the insurance companies ever dreamed of because you're doing what they're not doing. So insurance companies stop sending people into these shops to do all this. Shops apply online now. They fill out forms, they upload pictures of their facilities, and then they get turned on to the programs. No one comes back out and periodically re-inspects them, but you do, right? Every year you send somebody by to walk through there and check boxes. Some of you are dumb enough to look at repairs. You have some third party. You're liable for the third party. That's what agency is, right? You supposedly were supposed to have hired somebody that knew what they were doing, but you're actually going out and visiting these shops. You're walking through. You have people completing little reports. And then you have them uploading estimates to you. So for you of all people, you should know which shops aren't doing a good job. But when you're told shops aren't doing a good job, when someone makes you aware of a buyback, when someone posts pictures and shows you what's happening, what are you doing? Are you taking them off your certified? I mean, it's one thing from an insurance company to say, hey, we believe that this You should go get your car repaired here. We've got to deal with them, and they're not going to charge you more than whatever. When a customer goes to the OE website, they're not looking for a price deal. They're looking for a service, a certain quality level of service. You advertise to them that you're better than the local mechanic. You should come to our service department because we're factory trained technicians. And you should go to our body shops because these are trained and we've inspected them and they're wonderful. But then you're not. Like, for whatever reason, you're not. And so your liability is way more. I've talked to a couple other people that are that consultant level in the industry. There are multiple law firms crawling around right now looking for class actions against OEs. And I'm usually not a big fan of them. And my problem with big class actions, one, attorneys make money more than the people that are harmed. But two, I've always said that we're a very fragile industry. So much of what we have is on this very thin eggshell of reality, right? Like I always say, like our MSOs, you don't exist and get to have the discounts you get unless there's small independent body shops that are buying things at retail pricing, right? So if my small independents collapse, then that foundation of which you guys are trying to climb the ladder on falls out from under you. You don't get all those discounts anymore. And most of you have built your entitled profit margin or your profit model off of discounts instead of actually pricing profit, right? But the class actions make me worry because I just think we're one claim or we're one incidence or we're one class action away from kind of this, from the collapse of the ecosystem. And that may be our disruption, right? That may needs to be what happens as the whole thing falls apart so we can start over. But that's always made me nervous. Like I want to fix it, but I don't want to wipe the earth. I'm not ready for a flood and Noah. But I would like to tweak a few things, but there's some big law firms out there running around. And if you look at most body shops feel like this one in the letter, don't ask me about the repairs to your vehicle or what we did. Go ask your insurer. And I think that they fundamentally believe that. This one happened to be a Progressive claim, and so there were some issues there. Progressive, you got a hell of a lot of liability. I'm not even sure what you're thinking these days, but OEs, you have so much liability. You are so overexposed on these OE certified repairs that it is unreal. And I think some of you are just walking around in this fog going, we don't have any liability. That's the shop. And that somewhat works for insurers, but it will never, ever work for an OE. And there's no law firm. I can't believe there'd be any law firm in this country that would tell you you don't have some liability in this. So OEs, who is actually doing your inspecting? So these people that are going in and out of these shops, that are taking pictures, that are doing all of this, that are the first line of defense of your brand, who are they? And what are their skill sets? We've heard lately of like some Subaru issues where cars are getting pulled while shops are repairing them, and some of that's going on. And kudos, I'm glad if we get like a really good trained person that goes in there and goes, and pulls the stop. But then is that person empowered, or do they get chastised for making it too hard on a dealer or whatever? Do we let them keep doing that? What are shops uploading to you? So you may have them uploading estimates because you clearly only want to know about parts and part usage, but you have the whole estimate. So it should be very plain to you whether that shop is actually following the repair procedures for that vehicle. They either are or they aren't. You don't even have to see the damage. Once you know what parts are on there, you would know what they would need to do. And then what are you having them report? So this particular shop that had the leadership team has allegedly been let go because of the quality control issues. But what do they have to report? Is there anything in the contract that says they have to report some of that to you? I've got an incident with Tesla that we're doing some interviews and working on a documentary film about, where the shop had to go appear in front of the state. The state found them guilty. But not only is that location still on the program, they added 2 more of their locations to the program. And at no point was that shop ever required to disclose to the OE that the state was investigating them for fraud and consumer protection issues. So what do you what do you make shops report? If State Farm makes them buy a car back, should they report that to you? Um, even if they're buying back another brand. Well, so let's say it's a general body shop and they have 7 OE certifications, and they have to buy back a Toyota. Should they have to report to all the other OEs because it's the same technicians? Like, what would that reporting look like? In other words, do you want a heads up, or do the first time you want to learn that there's a problem with this brand is when there is a big lawsuit and everybody's having to answer a lot of questions? So if you're going to be on an OE program as a body shop, just remember multiple court cases has come back where it is believed that because you're an OE certified shop, you had a higher duty of care and a higher duty of standard. In other words, you knew better, you should have done better. So that will be interesting. I do want to say I am proud of the shop for making some sort of statement for if this is true, of letting leadership go and bringing and sending a message. Just make sure it was the right message and it wasn't we just want to do something so we don't lose our DRPs or our OE certs. Like, we didn't want to sacrifice one person, that there really is true change. And then for all of OEs and insurers, you need to keep an eye on your DRPs, because and some of the worst repairs I'm seeing in my life are coming out of some of the biggest, brightest, most technologically advanced boxes that we have in this industry. They have all the equipment, they have all the training, and they're doing terrible, horrible things to vehicles. Why, I don't know. If it's that they don't think they can make any money, like the insurance company's not paying enough, and so we're going to hack and whack these together. Whether they don't know better and need better training, only the people on the inside can figure that one out. But that DRP model probably isn't who anyone in the industry needs to say is the standard of repair. So if I'm an adjuster, I would worry more about the shops that are on my program than I would worry about the shops that are off my program, right? I used to try to teach my adjusters that all the time, and sometimes that fell on deaf ears. All right, let's talk about State Farm. I got a State Farm problem. I think all of you got a State Farm problem. I think State Farm has a State Farm problem lately. Got a comment that came in on one of the videos that said, "Hey, Kristen, can you please discuss what is going on with State Farm and labor rates next? This is getting interesting, to say the least." And then all this week and last week, you could go online into any of the groups and you'd see people saying, State Farm just called me today and told me they're dropping labor by $7, $10, whatever. So I just put a sample post up there. They're going to lower paint and body rates by 7 and paint materials by 6. And I just hooted, hollered, and laughed until I could not breathe anymore on this one. And so let me make this really clear. I thought I've been clear over and over, but I'm going to be very, very clear on this one. You are only as good, or you can only charge as much as the last and lowest estimate you uploaded. What you put on your walls as your stated labor rate, what you put on a survey as your stated labor rate, is 1000% worthless. I've not stuttered on this one since 2007 when Collision Hub came up. There is no such thing as a labor rate survey. They haven't been done. When I first started in 95, as the young one on the short end of the stick, I used to have to drive around to body shops because no one would fill out the survey, and they would be like, Kristen, go to these 5 shops and ask them to fill out the survey. No one does it. And then we learned that we didn't have to have anybody do it, because the real truth to court is not me going into court and going, these are the survey rates that people turned in. It's me going into court and going, here are the 5,000 estimates that have been uploaded from this zip code in the last X number of time frame. And those shops are charging X on average. So if you want to know where State Farm's getting their labor rates, they are doing right now what they probably always told you they weren't. They're looking at all of the labor rates in a market. You guys used to be told that, we don't pay attention to fleet and all that stuff. Honestly, you got some people going, why? Why aren't we paying attention to fleet? If you're willing to fix a 2000, let's go back to the Malibu. If you're willing to fix a 2024 Malibu for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for X dollars, why should X insurer pay more for the same repairs to a 2024 Malibu? So it's not like you guys were taking reduced rates to do older cars. You were offering fleet people a discounted rate who most of the time probably send you less, let's say give you less work. So if we went in and looked at your book of business, you probably have done, let's just say State Farm. You did 100 State Farm cars in 6 months. You might have done 5 for this fleet account that you gave all these discounts to. So that is riding the ship. Now, that's normal market. That is not what the DRP agreements are. So I want to be very clear. The DRPs are on an agreed pricing program, and it has nothing to do with what's kind of coming around right now. And you guys are being told as independent shops what they're doing. So they went and took, because I promise you, they didn't make this up, and they are well prepared to defend this in court if they have to. They have pulled all the estimates that have been uploaded and said, this is the average rate in the marketplace. You did this to yourself. We've been screaming since 2007 for me. Please, please, please do not upload anything that is not a labor rate that you don't want to live by. Now, if that means you're going to upload your $85 an hour as your labor rate, but you may want to make a line adjustment that says discount given to customer and that adjust the estimate. But y'all have gotten so caught up in matching an insurance estimate that you change the labor rates, you change your tax rates, you change anything you can to match, to win favor or do whatever it is that you think that's going to get you from an insurance company. And that's coming home to roost. We were talking about this a lot when that labor rate hero survey garbage was going on, and we were begging everybody, please don't do this, please don't do this, please don't do this. And then I would have associations going, no, this is the greatest thing. It's our chance to have an independent labor rate survey. And I'm like, you guys have never worked in an insurance industry. You are not seeing the long game here, because they don't care about the survey. They only care about what is uploaded. So in your market, whatever they are adjusting your rates to right now, it is because they have enough data to support it. There is not somebody sitting in corporate that just said, let's go reduce labor. They've got a plan. Very similar. I've talked over and over about this thing that happened in Delaware, where the insurance company comes in and says, here are all the estimates that uploaded just last month, and this is what the labor rate is. I did an RTA recently as an umpire. Last week, I had to make a decision. And the only difference really, I loved everything that the shop had done. I just couldn't agree with their labor rate, because under an insurance benefit, it's market labor rate. And so as we called and checked around the market, the shop was $20 higher than anyone in the market. And so it's just the market's the market, and that's how the market rate's set. So that's what court's for. If you want to argue labor rate, you go to court. You don't do RTA. Sometimes you'll get wins. They happen, and everybody's got a glory story that they'll promote and go, look what I just won in an RTA. But and then even when you win in court, it doesn't mean you get it all the time. But that's what's going on with State Farm. We all wondered, I think all the boomers that are retired and the ones that are about to walk out with their 30-year chips, we wondered when this would happen. This was a constant area of debate, particularly around the Service First contract. Why weren't we including those labor rates? Because particularly, I love Enterprise. I think they're great people. I love that company. I love everything about the Taylor family. Traditionally, shops offered a pretty good labor discount to them to be one of their shops. Cool. But and State Farm loves Enterprise too, so they don't want to hurt them either. But basically, that's a late model fleet. Those aren't old cars. And so you'd walk into a shop and they'd be doing that same 24 Honda, for $32 an hour, but they'd want to charge you 50 something or 45 or whatever. And you're like, doesn't make any sense. It's the same car, right? So be careful what you upload. I'm gonna tell you again, whatever rate you feel you are owed, that should be what is in your rate category. So for all the different rates that calculate at the end of the estimate, put your rate there. If you want to offer a discount because of a good service or you have an agreement with a particular provider, you can make that a line adjustment as a discount on the line, not necessarily on the labor. Mark, I hope that helps. I hope everyone else understands that the math that is being done to prepare for court is coming off of those calculations at the end of the estimate. So whatever, you can fill out every survey from here to Plato and none of it's going to matter. You can pay the labor rate hero people thousands of dollars. It is not going to matter. They are going to come in and say, here are all the estimates from this zip code that has been uploaded in 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. They're going to be able to go back as far as they want to go. So if you want to set the rate in a market, it is what you put in those categories in your estimating system, whether that is Mitchell, whether that is CCC, whether that is Auditex. Are we clear on that? That is the only thing that affects labor and labor rate. So don't have 7 different damn labor rates that you're entering because of whatever. And those of you that are on DRPs, you set yourself up for this big time. Because you agreed that you would make every estimate different. So, but that's where that's coming from. You're going to see, I told everybody the next couple of years are going to be terrible. This was going to be throat cut business. Like it was going to be survival of the fittest, all of these things that you guys said you would never do. Like, well, I don't want to do post-repair inspections. You better start doing them, right? Because you're going to have to be able to show why this people over here that are willing to work for this rate are terrible. And if you can't show that, then why would you deserve to get paid different? What makes you different from them, right? We'll see where the rest of the year goes. This is the first attack on labor rate. We've already started seeing the attacks on refinishing, not just on the refinishing rate, but the reduction of paint and paint hours and labor around paint. There is a massive movement to control severity. Now, MSOs, I'm going to talk to you really, and MLOs, you little regional guys over here that suddenly think you're the smartest damn thing on the planet, and then you big nationals. You need the independents to control that labor rate. So what they've been getting is part of where you set your rate. If that floor falls out from underneath you for what those independents in the marketplace that are not on the DRP have been doing repairs, you lose negotiation power. And I know a lot of you feel like, well, I got 1,000 stores. I have negotiation power. I have a relationship with the VP of claims. I've never in my life had a VP of claims that cared about anyone in the collision repair business. Like, got to take meetings with you. You're a necessary, but no, you guys aren't friends at all. But it is very critical that the overall health of everyone in this industry survive over the next 2 years, because ceilings and floors is what makes a market, right? If we start eroding away at the floor and things keep going further down, you don't stay here, everyone goes down. So this overall health and overall what's going on needs to become very, very important to everyone right now, not just an independent who's, kind of fighting for their life right now. And I think a little bit of too many of the executives in this industry, even the paint companies, don't think that it matters because you want to focus on where you believe the concentration of business is. But that is a very fragile business right now. You think being an independent body shop, that's kind of better because I can pivot, but these large companies can't pivot and they're very, very fragile. Anything that messes with profitability can be catastrophic. All right. Moving right along. Okay. If that wasn't enough to get your blood boiling, this industry had a couple of openings over the last, let's say January to now. We've had a couple of opportunities to bring in new blood. And I don't necessarily mean new people to the industry. I just mean hire differently. People that don't fricking look like you. Like how hard is that? I know as humans, we all tend to lean toward our comfort zone, and our comfort zone is what looks like, sounds like, and acts like us. But in business, change is imperative. Like you change or die. You're either Netflix or Blockbuster, or we think of Kodak, all the different companies that didn't change and didn't evolve, and things didn't work out for them and where they are now. But we've had multiple opportunities this year for companies or organizations to make really pivotal changes. To they had openings, we got problems. This industry's got a lot of problems, a lot of things that need to be fixed. We need new ideas and people that see things from a different perspective. And each and every time that we have had an opportunity to change for better, we have hired the same old guys in sports coats. So for the last, these people have been around for 30 years, right? It seems to be the magic number, 30 years in this industry. And not a single one of us would say that 2025 is our best year yet in the industry at all. Well, most of us are kind of holding on to uh, our wallets and our hats and waiting to see where the next shoe drops and what's going to happen here and what's the next problem that's going to develop in the industry. And we're worried and we're scared, and it's, we got tariffs and we got taxes and we got whatever. And so we had a chance, and they just went and hired the same people that had always been around. Same boys, same thing. Same old ideas, same people that were friends with people. I've known this guy for 30 years. We've been friends for forever. We're best buddies. We fish together. That's not going to make it better. Like, you just gotta, if you want to be different, if you want things to be different for your organization, you hire people that are different. So we missed the ball. I hoped, I think a lot of us had hoped, there's this little private chat group in the background of a lot of different people in the industry that are connected, that probably a lot of people don't know everybody's connected. But we had some high hopes that if we could get a couple of people hired in these different positions, that you could have a new outlook, a new hope, a new, whatever, to maybe do some things. And this industry completely disappointed all of us in that arena. So if your business is struggling and you're struggling and you have an opportunity to add to your team, whether that's somebody quits, leaves, whatever, try to think about outside the box, hiring somebody that sees the world differently than you, that has different connections than you, different experiences than you, just different. And the value of that is incredible. Like, if you can't, if you're not tearing up the world right now, continuing on the same path, the same people that see things the way you do, is not going to help you get there. All right, let's shift gears back to State Farm. Here's another State Farm problem. All right, this came in this week. This was not the first time I had this happen. And I just want to talk about it because I want you all out there to be keeping an eye on it as well. So one of the greatest things we can do is kind of police ourselves, right? That's the best thing. In this situation, a customer called to report a claim to their State Farm agent. The State Farm agent turned the claim in and told claims that the customer would be using this particular body shop. While the customer was leaving the agent's office and driving to the body shop, they got a call from Caliber the claim had been assigned to them and they needed to come in for the estimate. Customer kept driving, thankfully, kept driving to the body shop. When the body shop called in, they were told, well, this claim's been assigned to Caliber. And he's, no, that's not what the customer wanted. When it was over, the shop called the agent, was like, hey man, what happened? And the agent was like, no idea. I did the same thing. I turned it in as you. I have no idea how Caliber's name got on it. Now, this isn't a Caliber problem, so everybody don't, this isn't some nefarious deal that's been worked in on the background. But something to keep an eye on that you may want to do. This is not a steering problem. I guess maybe it could be, but it's not what everybody thinks it is. I firmly believe that the what's called claims penetration level for DRP has been asked to be increased. We used to be happy if 55% of claims went through DRP. I believe the top carriers have increased that, and they want more claims going through the DRP, particularly because a lot of those national level contracts they they work on a certain number of claims. And so if I have a lessening or reported claims, right, we have less claims coming in, and then I have more claims that are total losses, my bucket for repairables just got way smaller. But I promised all of these DRPs that they were going to get X number of claims, like a volume out of it. So I got to work really, really hard to get anything I can into that bucket. And a lot of times when claims adjusters are given initiatives or KPIs, they do really dumb things, not thinking about what the consequences of those dumb things are. So no, I don't believe this. Body Shop sent me this and then called me. No, I don't believe that anywhere within State Farm, someone called and told every adjuster that if a customer says they're going to Bob's Body Shop, immediately sign it to Caliber. That did not happen. Mostly because as a claims manager, I don't have that kind of time. I always keep telling people, shops, you're just not that damn important in my work day back then to really like attack you. Right? I don't have enough time to think about you. But I do believe that an initiative around a KPI around a certain percentage of claims going into the DRP, and if you're an adjuster and you're getting graded on that, but you don't have any formal training on steering or what some of the consequences are, and all you have to do is hit a drop down box and assign a claim, in your mind, you're thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, the worst thing that could happen is the customer calls back and says, no, I still want to use Bob's Collision. The best thing in the world that can happen is the customer doesn't know that they can say no, and they go to the DRP shop that you've entered. I want to be very clear. This isn't a Caliber problem. They happen to be one of the nationals. The nationals are going to be who pops up first on your drop down box. And so, C comes before G. And CA comes before CR. So I think it's just one of those things where that's what's happening. So if you begin to see this, or you start tracking this as well, or hearing about it, please let us know. I can promise you this is not a claims directive. No one is intentionally telling adjusters to ignore customer wishes and do X. I believe this is kind of what happens in claims when you used to happen to me all the time. I would go, okay, our initiative is we want to increase our repair time. And then suddenly I would have people writing repair on things that were just stupid, so it could count as repair time. Same thing here. I think it's an adjuster trying to play with their stats or their KPI, and they're hitting a drop down box. We just need to track, or if you guys can if you hear of more of that in different places, that will help narrow it down to whether it's a regional problem or it's a larger problem. So, but no, if you have this is like the third one I heard about. No, I don't believe that there was a meeting that said no claims get assigned to independent, or no customer can choose an independent body shop. So, world of claims. You think life is hard working at a body shop, or managing the painter? Because I always say the painter's like the biggest baby in the whole shop. But you should try managing claims. Like, there's a certain level of that job that requires whiskey and drugs for you to be able to like get through the day, because adjusters are special, and they react specially to special things, and you spend all day like putting out fires everywhere. There's a lot of things I'd like to do, but I don't think I would ever want to go back to being a claims manager ever again. All right. What's on the shelf? So I keep getting messages of what's that and where'd that come from or whatever, for some things that pop up behind me, whether it's my lunch boxes or the State Farm Polaroids or old State Farm class material that's up there or whatever. So I get the whole what's on the shelf kind of thing. And I think I have this on tracking, so this should follow me. It's gonna be a little weird, right? Okay, so I'm gonna do like a what's on the shelf thing. There's my microphone. Everybody goes, is this really real? Yes, this is how I do this. Okay, so what's on the shelf? I start as we're clearing out the shop this week. It's probably 5 or 6 years ago. I had to move my parents out of their house to move them closer here. And as we were moving them out of their house, just most everything went into the shop. Like I moved it all, like most of you, right? I have a place to store it. We'll put it in the attic of my shop. So then as I was unpacking things, there was all these childhood memories. So this is a very popular in the 80s was ceramics. Somebody, if you have a ceramic story from the 80s, we would like to know. And my dad bought my mom the is it a kiln? The fire thing where you fire your ceramics. Bought her one of those, put it in the basement, and my mom started making things. And well, like for those of you that were also around in the 80s, it was very popular to give insurance companies gifts. So that was when the adjusters were all local. And we would load up the truck and we'd probably have like 100 different gift bags in there. And we'd go to the Allstate office and then we'd go to the State Farm office and then you'd go to the farmer's office and you'd walk up and down the aisles and you'd leave little gifts on all the adjusters' desks. Well, one year my mom made, because you could also smoke, this is the 80s. The 80s were why I wanted to be an adjuster. You could smoke and drink whiskey at your desk while handling claims. And I thought, this is the greatest job ever. But my mom made ashtrays. It had a little car that goes on it. And so one year we went around and every adjuster got a handmade ashtray by my mom and a limited edition Jim Beam bottle that there's some of those on the top shelf up there. So I kept collecting them. Very 80s thing as well. So yeah, we made little cars. She made the little cars and we painted them and then you put them in the oven and so that was 80s and claims. For claims and body shops and relationships is we made all the adjusters ashtrays. And nowadays you can't even smoke on the entire campus, much less much less at your desk. But God, those are the glory years. Like I used to I could think of nothing else other than being an adjuster because you got to smoke and drink at your desk. And I thought that's the greatest job ever. So, and then I learned that that's just called a painter and they do that all the time too. So there was that to do. All right. Let's talk about SmartRight. Just so that you're aware, for those of y'all, hail season, a lot of you have already gotten hit with hail. And then if you're here in Arkansas, you've gotten hit with floods, or Kentucky or everywhere else. So we are in the middle of the spring cat season, tornadoes, hail, flood, etc. If your shop suddenly finds themselves with an influx of claims for whatever reason, Derek and his team over at SmartRight with Billy Valali and his team up in New York can help you out. So you can send all of those to them. You can just send your total losses if you want to just have help with your total losses. If you want to have someone help write your reparables. So in this example, this was a 2023 Wagoneer that had water up to the seats. Obviously, that's a total loss. And we would love to just write OTL on the windshield and move on with our day. But this particular shop had to write an estimate. And they're like, what do you write on a flood car? And where does it start? No problem. We got you. We have flood trained estimators. We have PDR technicians that also write PDR estimates. There's everything in there. And so within 24 hours, the shop got back a $55,000 initial estimate. And then with a lot of notes in there that says, we're going to have to check codes. We're going to have to check the engine. We're going to have to check, all the things that we don't know yet to be determined at another time. So this is great. You may have I'm sorry. You may have an estimator go on vacation and you need extra help. You may have an influx of claims because of a weather event and you need extra help writing estimates. You may just want to not mess with your total losses and have somebody write those for you. But if you need help or you get in a pinch, then definitely keep SmartRight in mind. They can write 18-wheelers, they can write RVs, they can write tractors, these guys can write anything. So, and they can write your non-book card. So sometimes let's say this is for Larry, I am not Mercedes certified, but if I had a Mercedes towed in that was an obvious total loss, why the hell am I going to send it over to a certified shop? Because it's a dead car. I'm not going to order parts on it anyway. So if you need help writing the estimate to justify the total loss, then there's a service for that as well. So just keep SmartRight in mind. Derek and Billy are crushing that. I wish I had thought of it. All right, last story of the day. This is another one of my favorites. So insurance people, whether you're an adjuster, whether you're an agent, whether you're a claims manager, whatever your role, you probably do more fraud than the body shop. So if I look back on my career, I spent more of my time working internally to catch the crap my people were doing than what was going on with body shops. So I think sometimes we villainize the body shops. We think that they're out to get us. They're cheats. They're padding estimates. They're doing whatever. Our side of the fence ain't clean either. This story came out last week. So the California Insurance Commissioner, he'd been under some previous scrutiny. I believe he was originally elected in like 2019, and he's recently been reelected, or 2018 and got reelected in 22 or whatever. So he's kind of in his lame duck phase of, I guess, his service here. Just so he had been elected insurance commissioner. He had sort of put together what he called a committee to explore whether he wanted to run for lieutenant governor. That's code for slush fund, right? If you put together an exploratory committee, it allowed him to take some donations that people were able to say. It allowed him to roll over some funds from his election campaign to become the insurance commissioner in California. And then from that fund, he has just bought himself a lot of alcohol and food, which probably the guy's a little bit after my own heart, right? Like, it's not bad. If I had a slush fund, that's probably what I would do with it too, right? But at the same time, he's charged to go to all these conferences. And I believe the taxpayers of California have paid for those air trips all over the world. So he's flying around. He's eating really expensive dinners. He's drinking really expensive alcohol. And he keeps writing all of this down as campaign meetings, and everybody's like, "What the hell are you campaigning for? You should be you should be the insurance commissioner of California." And oh, by the way, while he's been doing all this, he has missed pretty much all of the hearings in the state of California that his department, of which he is over, is handling. Now, early on in his career, he got in trouble. He was taking a little too much money from the insurance companies. He was spending a little too much time with the insurance companies. And he issued an apology for that. I want to say that was 2019 or whatever. But he's back under fire. So now the local journalists have really dug in on him. It is an interesting story. You can go read it, watch the videos. I think it's the San Francisco Chronicle, if I got that right. That's been doing the heaviest part of the investigation. So the reason, I guess, I would share that story is that everybody, both sides, has issues. I know we talked about last week about a sting operation that the bar was doing in California, which caused people to go, shops in New York do it worse or whatever. Everybody's got a problem. If everybody probably, the insurance side worried more about their side of the house than they did about anybody else's, we'd be in better shape. But if you're a young adjuster and you're trying to figure out this industry, and first of all, kudos for trying and listening. I'll give you that. Do not be so quick to allow yourself to judge a repair facility, which I hear it way too often. That shop, right? Their estimates are too high. They must be, they're liars and they charge too much and they're just trying to, get away with fraud or whatever. Don't let yourself do that. What you think, your leadership team, some people in your company right now today, there is an internal audit team that is chasing down someone for fraud. Every stinking month, I used to get a report to find out that one of my adjusters was doing a kickback scheme with a body shop. For every car that got in there, they got $200. Or they were doing an invoicing scheme where they would turn in extra towing invoices and they were getting that. And sometimes some of my higher adjusters that did investigations would invent fake companies, fake LLCs for engineering reports or accident recreation or whatever. And they were just writing checks to themselves. Eventually that gets caught. It does. Typically it's because you made someone in your family mad or your spouse mad and they turn you in. But I spent a lot of time with that. And so don't be so quick to paint one side of the fence to be the bad guy. Body shops, you do this too. You think all insurance companies are out to get you. If I see one more of you post that stupid delay, deny, defend crap, That's a great book that an attorney wrote, and he's very happy to take your money. But at no point at any in my career, at any insurance company that I ever worked for, was there ever a teaching on delay to not offend. That's just not how that works. So you you're quick to paint the other side as one way or the other, but both basically you're both really the same. So interesting. I hope California, I hope that this does a little bit of whiplash. It's not been a good time to be a body shop in the state of California in the last couple of years, which prior to this guy, things were pretty good. And I've never been able to like pinpoint whether it was this guy or whether the California Auto Body Association kind of I don't want to say it disappeared. It unraveled a little bit, and it wasn't quite as organized as it had been. It was very organized and was doing things like, I'm not a big association fan, but you had that, then you had Texas, and they were doing some good things, and then California kind of seemed like it unraveled a little bit, but it was hard to tell whether it was California, or this guy, and so apparently it may just be this guy, right? At least now they've caught it. And hopefully he's going to suffer the consequences of it. Make me very, very happy. All right. Well, that's about all I got for this Monday. We are going to be continuing to work really, really hard to get out of the building so that we're out of there by the end of the month. I take off tomorrow. I am in today. I get on a plane tomorrow, and I am heading up to Kansas City. So if you have signed up for our live negotiating class, I will see you Wednesday in Kansas City. If you've signed up to watch the broadcast of it, if you didn't make it to Kansas City to sit in there with me, well, then I guess I'll see you virtually by that. So I'm traveling for the rest of the week, and which means I get to get out of all the hard labor, and the team still has to work while I'm gone. So I got that going for me. If you have questions, comments, concerns, things that you want to see us cover on Coffee Talk, you can be like Mark there and send it in, put a comment on the video, send it to Melanie. Please don't send it to me. I will never read it if it comes through my email. Send anything you got to Melanie. If you want to learn more about SmartRight, well, you can shoot that to Melanie, or you can reach out to Derek or Billy online. They'll be happy to help you as well. And then we will see you next week on Coffee Talk. Hope everybody has a wonderful week, and we may flood again. So yeah, I may need a boat. Maybe the collision of boat. Maybe that's what I'll do. That would be pretty cool. Like, what would we call it? Total loss? Like the SS total loss or whatever? I don't know. Give me your comments. Tell me what we would name a boat if Collision Hub bought a boat. Thanks, guys. See you next week. Bye.